What if I just like, I'm like, oh, I'm wearing a shirt. And then it's like, oh. Hey guys, my name is Justin and welcome to Hillsboro. I don't know why I'm doing this. I mean, I am crazy, so what do I normally say? Where we care about design behind designer luxury or something like that. And if you do too, make sure to subscribe. That part I did remember. Okay, so I'm feeling fun. I'm feeling frisky, much like the cats from the Jellicle Ball. I don't know what it is. I've never seen cats and I don't know what this thing is, but I just like the word Jellicle. I also don't know if I'm saying it right, so let me know in the comments if I'm saying it right. For today's video, I thought I would do another different type of video because clearly I cannot pick one thing and stick with it. So, I mean, if you know me, you know my favorite brand is Loewe, and I am constantly impressed, inspired, and surprised in a good way by this house. They are constantly doing things that I think bring craftsmanship, bring creativity, and like what kind of perspective around luxury exists onto the next level. Much more than I would say nearly any other house that's doing it in the same impactful way that Jonathan Anderson is doing. So, to simplify it, I thought I would just talk about like my favorite 5 bags right now. But I do want to take it from like the idea of like craftsmanship and what it actually means from the house. Like I thought we could actually like have like some little bit of conversation about it because I don't know what it is, but right now I'm just like extremely impressed. I'm really interested in the brand. For a while, like the fashion landscape just felt very flat to me, and then once again it's Loewe that's bringing me back in. So let's talk about it. Okay, so the first bag I wanted to talk about, I would say is probably the least interesting when it comes to like the structure, shape, etc, etc. It literally is just, it's a Flamenco Clutch. It's a medium Flamenco Clutch in nappa calfskin, which is I think a misnomer because this version, there's a couple of different colorways, and they're not available online. They're only available in selected stores. But what they actually did with this is they layered and compressed nappa calfskin and suede of different colors to make this kind of like, I mean, the one that I'm looking at right now is beachy, but then like some of the other ones just have this like very like, it feels like layers of rock, like different layers of like sediment that like got compressed. Like it feels very Grand Canyon-y, if that makes sense. But what I love about this is like, it's not just the shape of the bag they're looking at, and it's not just like what new material can they do, but they're actually looking at like the way that they can work with existing materials, the different ways they can treat it, and to me that is extremely revolutionary. I feel like this bag has actually been out for a little while, so you probably have seen it, but I feel like it would have been like a missed opportunity to talk about like the way that the creative process is working within this house, because we know like it's not necessarily all the creative director who's calling all the shots. There's a lot of like great minds behind it, but the fact that like Jonathan Anderson and his team has the ingenuity to come up with this, he has the confidence to put out a product like that, I think is outstanding. Okay, so the next bag I wanted to talk about, I mean, okay, if we're being honest, all the names of these are so generic because like, how do you describe something like that? But, well, okay, I lied, because this one actually like has the detail that I was looking for. So this bag is called the XXL So this bag is called the XXL Carpet Puzzle Fold Tote in silk and wool. So what I find so interesting about this bag is, again, we're talking about materials, but this XXL tote, it's this huge, like it's like an IKEA bag. Like that's like the size and shape of it. I think it might even be bigger than an IKEA bag. But what I find so interesting about this is like taking the material of like handmade carpets and then putting them together. It calls back to the idea of like what a carpet bag is, like these like traveling bags that were big in, I think oh my god, what was it, like the 18th or 19th century or something like that. Taking the idea of like this old school idea of what like a traveling bag would be and then updating it into this very like geometric, architectural, I would say very current way of carrying things, because a lot of, me included, I think a lot of people use like our IKEA bags to pack and stuff like that, right? It's almost like what Balenciaga did with their IKEA tote, but in a very much more like refined and like smart way. What's also impressive is that this is available online and it's a 15-piece limited edition Granted, this bag is like 12,000 euros, so it's like crazy, but the fact that like it's also like that's very accessible for like a limited edition piece. Not the price obviously, but the fact that you can get it online. There's like a certain wit and a certain charm when it comes to like thinking about materials, when it comes to like bags and the way that they come together with history and, you know, currently like what's happening in fashion. So it's a good one. So this next bag I want to talk about is, again, it's a flamenco bag, but this one, it actually reminds me of in the Howl's Moving Castle capsule collection. There was a flamenco bag where there was a bunch of raffia, like dark gray, black feathers on it, and this is what it feels like. The difference here is that this flamenco purse, it has that texture. It feels very like almost furry. It looks more feathery, to be honest, by the way it's done. But then it's laser cut, so that's what gives it that like kind of like, they call it a fringe texture. I would almost say like, yeah, it looks almost like feathery. I think there's not anything too exciting about this one in particular, but still the fact that like on this iconic kind of bag shape, you're still trying to do different techniques. And I'm a huge fan of laser cutting because I think it's like one of the ways that you can have like this very uniform pattern or texture made. So for them to do it for this, like I know like there's also this like initiative with a lot of fashion houses where they're trying to cut out fur and things like that. And I'm like, hey, this is a smart way to get that kind of like soft, like almost fuzzy kind of texture, but just from leather. I don't know if that's what the reason is, but I feel like that could be one way to think about it. And either way, I find this bag very like attractive. And the fact that it's metallic also helps it feel a little bit more interesting than just it being like whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, Loewe is very well known for their basket bags, and even like woven leather is something that they've done in the past and they're bringing back. I actually just took a look at like a hammock bag that had the woven sides, beautiful. But this is one that I find it's almost like hypnotic to look at. I don't remember if I saw the name because I'm hypnotized. What is that? Kennedy Davenport, what did she say? After a night hooking, I had crystallized. So it's the mini diamond round basket bag. And what I find so beautiful is that this is entirely hand woven. And honestly, for the price, it's not that bad. It's completely hand woven out of leather. But what I think is cute is that like yeah, it's a mini bag, but then it has like a little drawstring pouch because like with the basket, you don't have any flexibility. So, and there's even like a little charm on it. I just find it so cute. Oh, and it even comes with a strap. Okay, I have to say I saw all these bags and I was like, okay, I don't want to look at them too much because I want to make a video about them. And now I'm like going through and I'm like, oh, okay. The texture that's made with the leather and then that diamond, like the square at an angle detail where the handle meets the actual body of the bag, I find is so beautiful. To add this kind of geometry on something that's so, it's like, it's the ultimate juxtaposition of like material versus shape, right? You have like leather, which can be stiff but can be soft, so they're used in this way to make something very stiff and firm, but then the shape is very like voluptuous. There's a curvature to it that almost feels very like anatomical in the way that like the bag like almost like comes under and like sags a little bit, and that you don't get from like a typical basket bag. And then you add that like sharpness from the diamond of like the woven leather in again. Something about it is just so great. This would never be like a super popular piece. Watch me be wrong. Watch it become like an it bag or something, which would be very stupid because like it feels so impractical for most people. For like still like they're constantly just like investing in their craftsmanship and making these beautiful pieces that yeah, maybe aren't practical, but who cares? It's art. They're making like art. Granted, it's a little bit consumable in that respect, but you know, what art on the grand scale isn't made to be consumable unless we're talking about like these whatever. This is a channel that talks about handbags. Let's not get deep into like what is art and who calls the value of art, which like what I'm saying now is not what I think about art in general, but like on like the commercial grand scheme of things. Okay, and then the last bag I want to talk about is actually a small grouping of bags from, I'm assuming this is like a small capsule I'm gonna just read this because this is great. The special edition bags, created in collaboration with Japanese bamboo artist Hafu Matsumoto, are inspired by his sculpture practice, applying his signature technique of bending bamboo to bands of leather. This version is crafted in calfskin with an internal nappa lambskin. Oh no, that's just about this bag. But there's 3 bags. So one of them is the interlaced hobo bag, one of them is the compact hammock, and then there's also a small puzzle bag that also has this kind of like touch to it. Like when you think of like woven leather, you often think of like a very like tight kind of like knit where like it becomes very stiff. The way that these bags all looks very like loose, airy. Even the puzzle bag, which is very like this closed off thing. Here, the way that the folds are done, I'm not a huge fan of like the puzzle edge bag where it's like the edges kind of like overlap slightly, but there's something about this one where the overlap feels more generous and it almost feels more like origami. Actual leather just being folded and almost being held together with these like, it looks like stitches made out of like leather, which I find so beautiful. This one feels so much like a basket or something like that, and I find it so interesting. I think the handle is beautiful, how the leather is wrapped around it. That's just a small detail though, because for me, really, it is the actual bag. The fact that it looks folded and it still has that supple softness instead of it being kind of stiff. Completely in contrast to the mini diamond round basket bag that we just talked about. Honestly, the least exciting one for me is the compact hammock bag, but that might be opposite to how some of you guys might feel. Looking at the side of it is super interesting. It's almost like these bands of leather have been like grouped together and just been tied in almost like a makeshift way. So it's very beautiful. I do appreciate that there's a drawstring pouch inside of it because it makes it a lot more usable. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, looking at these details where you see like, it looks like it could just be like a cosmetic way of like showing attachment while also sewing it with something stronger. But like the way this leather is bunched together, that's not an attractive word, but like, you know, my vocabulary is like a 7-year-old, so whatever. It's just so beautiful. But I have to say, my absolute favorite is the interlaced hobo bag. It's not based on any of the existing bags per se. Hafu Matsumoto, the way that he used like the existing structure of the hammock, of the puzzle to really inform what the leather would do. Beautiful. I love that kind of thing where like you start with something well known and then you create something new out of it. Amazing. Really loose knot of wide leather just woven in and out of itself with like a shoulder strap and a little drawstring pouch. This is so beautiful. This feels like an art piece in a way, right? Like this is something that you could imagine someone buying and displaying, but instead they made it usable by putting a little drawstring pouch and adding a little shoulder strap. Also, I think it's the most affordable. This one's only 2,000 euros, so like, you know, a little over $2,000. Yeah, the other ones are sitting at like around 3,000, so just saying. So in total, all of these bags, I feel like the big conversation, maybe except for like the laser cut one, to me it feels like an analysis of like how far can we push the craft of bag making from this commercial space into one that fits more in the artistic realm. And I think that's what I find so interesting about the brand. And that being said, even the laser cut one, like it's not necessarily that it's not artistic, because you know, laser cutting is laser cutting. It's very like easy way to mass produce this kind of like fine things with consistency or whatever. But it's also interesting because it's like a look at the future, potentially. Like how can you treat something to make it act like something else? And like that's something that I expect from like Glenn Martin's at Diesel specifically, because that brand has the funds to like look into things. Like I think they even made like denim fur or something like that, right? To see a house like this like trying to push their creativity in this way, I find so admirable. Jonathan Anderson, if you ever become single, I'm right here, just letting you know. But let me know what you guys think. Like, do you think these bags, do you think I'm like hyping it up too much? Like, it could also be like, you know, smaller designers are doing this at a much smaller scale, which like I don't doubt, especially like the laser cutting one, I'm so sure. But I do think there is something to like having a large mainstream brand doing something like this. There's also a statement in that as well. But that is all I have for you today. So if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It lets me know that you like this kind of content and that you too care about the design behind designer luxury. Until next time.